In a wintry, almost silent night in March 1968, in the far northwest of the Pacific Ocean, the Soviet diesel-electric submarine K-129 disappeared so suddenly as if the elements themselves had decided to erase it from the map, even though on board there remained combat missiles with nuclear warheads, multi-layered ciphers, and nearly 100 sailors who had set out on what seemed at first glance to be an ordinary mission and never returned home. No surfacing, no signal, no last radiogram, as if they all stepped into the water and dissolved, leaving behind only troubling questions that made the Cold War shudder even decades later. What was it that broke this stoutly built hull? Why was the USSR never able to find its own submarine, and why did the Americans arrive at the site of the sinking first? The K-129, created under Project 629A, belonged to the Gulf II class and was considered one of those submarines that could silently go under the ice, slip along oceanic borders, and keep ready missiles with nuclear warheads capable of changing the political map of the world in a few minutes. So its departure from Kamchatka on February 24, 1968, looked completely ordinary and did not raise any extra questions. However, later researchers recalled that before this departure, the submarine underwent a series of unusual inspections, which could speak of a more complex task than a standard patrol, although no one of course assumed that this mission would be the last. After March 8, the K-129 stopped making contact, and the Soviet command, which was confident in the crew's training and strict discipline, at first hoped for communication disruptions, but the longer not a single signal came, the clearer it became that something irreversible had happened in the ocean. Ships, aerial search groups, and even individual reconnaissance planes set out for the area of the suspected disappearance. However, multi-day attempts to discover even the smallest trace of the submarine ended in empty results, because the ocean, as is known, knows how to keep secrets more reliably than any archive. At the same time, the American SOSUS system, a vast network of underwater microphones, recorded a powerful spike, which experts later interpreted as an explosion or the destruction of the hull, and it was precisely this data that allowed the USA to determine the coordinates at approximately 40 degrees north latitude and 179.9 degrees east longitude, where beneath a layer of water nearly 5,000 meters deep rested the fallen submarine.
The causes of the K-129's death still cause controversy, since Soviet reports never surfaced, and American materials that could shed light on this story remain partially classified, which over the years only heats up the interest of researchers. Some claim that the cause could have been an explosion of the storage batteries, which under certain conditions could indeed go into a chain reaction. Others believe that the submarine could have collided with an American nuclear sub, and still others are certain that an internal explosion occurred in one of the missile compartments, which destroyed the hull and ruined the ship in a matter of seconds, although each version has weak points and none becomes fully convincing. The true tragedy lies not only in the tangled circumstances of the death, but also in the fact that 98 sailors went on their final oceanic voyage without the right to an explanation, although their fate became part of one of the darkest underwater stories of the Cold War. A few years later, the USA developed the secret operation Project Azorian, which in terms of scale, cost, and technological audacity looked almost like the plot of a science fiction novel, as it was necessary to raise part of the Soviet submarine from a depth of 16,000 feet, that is, from a level where the water presses heavier than Everest could press if one were to try to dive beneath its base. For the operation, they built a unique ship, the Hughes Glomar Explorer, equipped with a giant mechanical claw capable of capturing part of the hull and lifting it into a special dock inside the vessel itself, so that no one, neither accidental observers nor Soviet satellites, would understand that the Americans were trying to steal secrets from the sea floor. Officially, the USA claimed they were mining manganese nodules, but the goal was precisely the K-129, although the project ended in only partial success, since during the lift a fragment of the hull broke off and went to the bottom, and everything that was successfully raised is still covered by a thick layer of secrecy.
The story of the K-129 became a kind of symbol of an era when the ocean was turning into a field of quiet but ruthless competition between superpowers, and each missing submarine became an occasion for secret operations, engineering breakthroughs, and political maneuvers in which the truth,
rarely played the lead role. The raised fragments and declassified documents still have not given a final answer about the causes of the tragedy. Therefore, the K-129 remains a mystery that has lived for more than half a century and continues to generate new questions, especially if one remembers that beneath the layer of water, fragments of the hull and artifacts inaccessible to the eye may still be stored.